Can you feel it too? Welcome back to the City Ramble with me for this match day review. Joe Olivier. Joe, how are we doing? Brightened your day with my dulcet tones there just after the introduction music.
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Actually, I've had a pretty busy weekend. Obviously, Halloween at uni, gets pretty hectic. Been out on the Friday, been out on the Saturday, but it's nice to top the weekend off with a City win. And I mean, Torino came back from a 2-2 draw, from 2-0 down. Shea Adams scored. That's quite nice. Celtic won the Old Firm. So you know what? It's been a pretty bloody good weekend, I'll say.
Yes, they did. Yeah, some good football this weekend. Likewise, I was a busy bee myself. Have you got a moment of the weekend? Obviously, you've just listed a couple there, so feel free to dip back in. But have you got something separate?
I'm going to be very wholesome and say that seeing Owen as a fellow contributor at the City
No.
game today was very nice to have a drive to the game and drive home from the game with him. So I'll say that's my moment of the weekend. Be all cutesy and wholesome for the podcast.
The Sheffield Blues supporters club is growing week by week. Moment of the weekend for me. United didn't win. Don't think we mentioned that, which is
Yeah.
always good. You can cut your hair with that one, Frank. That was horrible. Sweet. Let's get into it then. Manchester City 3, Bournemouth 1. And I think, Joe, it's easy to sit here after the fact when Bournemouth weren't great and go, how much can we necessarily learn from that? But you have to remember going into it, I'm pretty sure Bournemouth were ahead. Bournemouth were ahead of City going into the match, and obviously a lot of the talk was this is a big test for City, and I myself had, and I still have, the next couple of games as well in mind. But I had the three games of Bournemouth, Dortmund, and Liverpool as my quarter of a season litmus test, basically. And we were speaking with Adam on the preview show, saying, ask us where we're at after these three games, answers to sort of, what City are possibly capable of. And yeah, don't get me wrong, I didn't think Bournemouth played particularly well. We'll get into that. But overall, a very strong, and apart from a little bit of a wobble at a set piece, which is annoying, but again, we'll get into that, a very good performance.
Yeah, I was mightily impressed today. I was coming into it. I was very very nervous. I bumped into one of my old school teachers outside the ground, which was probably actually my joint moment of the weekend. And I was saying to him, like, I'm very nervous about how Nunes is going to cope with Semenyo, how we're going to cope with if we have got the ball for a lot of the game. If we're caught on the break, how do we deal with that? Bournemouth are brilliant in transition, so if we're the dominant force and we're getting pinned back on the counter attack, that's where I was very fearful of Bournemouth from. And in the end, we coped immensely well. We played some really nice football in that first half. I mean, I'm sure we'll get on to Nico Gonzalez and Cherky, but Gonzalez specifically, you can just see how much he's grown into that role of being a lone six, and it's not just about sideways passes now. He's willing to break the line. I mean, I've never seen Foden beg and ask for the ball so much and then actually receive it on the half turn. I thought Gonzalez was playing the ball to him so much today, and it was a real nice change from sort of maybe what we come to expect with him is just sort of a plug him in the sixth role and just sort of he'll do the job of sort of dictating tempo and stuff. But he was actively engaging in the attacks and starting the attacks off. I mean, we saw that for the first goal. But yeah, going into the game, I was very, very nervous. I think that's rightfully so. Like you say, Bournemouth, they're in a good position. They have very strong characters that can do a lot of damage. People that City may be interested in it come the summer. But I think, like you say, Nunes, comfortable. I thought he played very well today. And we just sort of nullified their attack really well. We didn't concede too many transitions. The goal we did concede was a soft set piece to concede. Another day, maybe if, I think it's Brooks who's holding on to Donnarumma's arm, maybe if he does that for like 2 or 3 more seconds, there's a bit more of a case to ask for it to be disallowed. I think the way that it just wasn't enough for it to be really like a hard case for the goal to be chalked off. But yeah, otherwise, I think City were very comfortable, strong, in a game where coming into it, I would have said it's a must-win after the defeat of Villa. I think you need to get this week off to a good start because this not, it's not sort of title defining, season defining, but like you say, it's a very good test of just to see where City are, whether that sort of winning run we had before the Villa game was sort of just us riding momentum and not really performing that well. But I think today we got a good result, but also a good performance out of the game as well.
Yeah, I feel like one of the themes for this season with a lot of people, and understandably so, football fans are fickle beings after all. But I think there's going to be a lot of confirmation bias with whichever outlook you have. Unless City go on an absolute tear and start challenging Arsenal properly and even overtaking Arsenal for the league title. But I think those who are maybe a little bit more doom and gloom will look at the Villa result and go, you know what, that is City going, we're not shaking off these old ways, blah, blah, blah. Those who are a little bit more positive will look at the Bournemouth result and say, this is it, City are on their way back, blah, blah, blah. I think, as has been the case for most of the season, the truth is it is very much firmly in the middle at the moment. And we are going to have, I think, again, not to sort of blow smoke up our own bottoms, but we were saying this on the preview show again. There's going to be moments where this season City win a couple of games in a row. We're saying, what can this team do? We've got great young players, blah, blah, blah. And they might go to a ground where they come unstuck and they have a bad day at the office because you've not got yet a Kevin De Bruyne in his prime or a Sterling in the prime. Obviously, you've got Haaland very much in the prime, but as we know, he can't do it all on his own. And you might have a bad day at the office like Villa Park was. My sense is very much trending towards the optimistic side of things, and I'm not suggesting for a second, a win over a pretty poor Bournemouth suggests that City will be clawing that gap back to Arsenal, will be going and winning 5-6 games in a row, blah, blah, blah. But I think there have been so many positive signs, and the Bournemouth game on Sunday was just like, for me, yes, this was much needed at the right time. Like you say, though, it is only one step or one check off what is a big week for City, and if Dortmund's a poor performance, or if Liverpool come and turn City over, especially given the form they have been in, yeah, maybe warning signs will be brought up then. And I do think, obviously, Dortmund and Liverpool are a much tougher test, even though Liverpool were below Bournemouth at the start of the weekend. The lineup, I think, was kind of what most people were expecting Pep to do. Maybe not what everyone wanted to see. I was a touch surprised to see Tijani Reinders dropped because I thought, not that I necessarily disagreed with it, but obviously we've seen him start, I'm pretty sure, every single game this season in the league for City. Bernardo Silva came in. It did feel like Swansea in midweek was a good advert for a Bernardo Silva type in terms of, a little bit of super glue in the middle of the park. And I don't necessarily think Bernardo was great, but he was active and he was covering ground, and obviously that helped out the likes of Nunes, who, again, I agree, had a real case for man of the match. But in terms of everywhere else, Nico O'Reilly comes back, and it was kind of rudimentary. It was kind of pretty simple, and like we say, what we expected.
Yeah, I actually quite like the lineup, to be honest. I think the Reinders, yeah, fair. I think you could probably swap him or Bernardo out, and I'm quite happy with that regardless. I think Cherki was the big one for me. I was very much an advocate after the game against Swansea that he should start, and specifically on that right-hand side. And I think because it just suits his game so well. I think less so on the lineup, more just the way that Pep played today was spot on. So I think he got it right to a T. You had the high and wide fullbacks in Nunes and O'Reilly, something that both of them excel at. You had Nico, and then I suppose Bernardo sort of dropping deep, almost playing left back at times. Being that super glue, like you're saying, he performed brilliantly in that role. But then you had the wingers inverting. You had Doku and Cherki coming inside, and maybe that's less sort of suited to Doku's game. But I thought with Cherki, that's just exactly what that guy needs when he's playing football and he's not sort of in that desired 10 role, because it means we get the best out of him because he's coming into that midfield. We can still have that midfield influence. We still have Foden at the 10. We're not sort of compromising his role, and everyone's winning all around. And I think that just the entire game plan, the entire setup from City, we went at them pretty strong, I'd say, in the first half. Second half, we decided, okay, let's sort of slow the tempo down a bit, and that worked. The game, we could tell there was people getting around me, sort of getting frustrated that City weren't sort of going for a fourth or a fifth or something like that, and annoyed that we didn't put away the chances that we did beforehand, like Haaland's and O'Reilly's before he scored. But I think at that point, City had sort of said, look, the game is 2-1. We don't want to go too hard and concede a scrappy goal or something, and then we're back to square one. It's 2-2. and we're only going to have to settle for a point. I think they realised, the third goal did come, I suppose, relatively-ish late on. But, City realised that they just sort of need to control the tempo now and dictate the game how they want it to play out. And they did that perfectly. So I think both setups in both the first and the second half were brilliant. I think the lineup was I was quite happy with it. I think it's pretty spot on. It's weird. We finally got a left back, and Nico O'Reilly seems to be, he's just spawned in. It's just, I don't know. Well, who is what the greatest left back of our generation? He's just the Roberto Carlos of this Man City team. Do you know what I mean?
Cafunes and Roberto O'Reilly.
Exactly. There you go. I mean, of course, it's the 1 year we finally do sign a left back. I think if there's ever a sentence for typical City when it comes to signings, that would be typical City. But yeah, I was quite happy with the lineup, and again, I think that the way that Pep set the game up today was excellent. I really enjoyed watching Cherki on that right hand side coming into midfield.
I was just gonna touch on that. Obviously, Cherki deserves his own segment itself, but I think a nice segue is how interchangeable that front three were, and it wasn't quite Liverpool under Klopp, Firmino, Salah, Mane, kind of, everyone changing positions in their pomp. But it was certainly, we saw Doku coming inside, which I was going to say, I did say it's not like Liverpool under Klopp, but I maintain, the Pep Linders impact there. It is kind of looking a little bit like Sadio Mane when he was inverting and coming into those spaces. I think he just suits that sort of game so much because of the havoc he causes. Part of it is possibly down to Doku's flaws. Part of it, I think, is as well down to the way that he's defended against and how often he's doubled up. And if he goes down the line, then it's so much harder, especially for a right-footed player, to sort of get across and make the right decision. But when you're coming inside and you're causing havoc that way, you've got Haaland who's making the runs in behind. You've got Foden, Cherki picking up in the pockets. Obviously, on the right-hand side, you've got Nunes as well, who's providing width from that side of defence. It just felt... It felt so balanced and so just like pretty. I think it sounds like a weird way to describe it, but it was just fun to watch. And obviously we've had good moments this season, but I think one of the sticking points has been the functionality of the attack, which is stupid to say when your strikers just scored the 25th goal for club and country and it's only the 2nd of November. But it has felt like a little bit at times very rigid with the way City have attacked, and it's kind of been like, I'm not going to name names and call players out, specifically, but this player's been stood there and that player's been stood there, and it's like, well, if they dared to sort of cross over each other, it felt like they were going to break some sort of law. That wasn't the case against Bournemouth. All three of them behind Haaland were happy to sort of roam about a little bit. It wasn't, like I say, it wasn't necessarily completely all over the pitch, but it was a real positive sign. Obviously, the main benefactor being Ryan Cherki, who gets an assist with his head from inside his own half. That's just absurd.
I mean, yeah, just on sort of your earlier point, it was a breath of fresh air. It was slick, it was neat, it was reminiscent of old City teams where that fluidity is very much sort of a prominent feature that you would use to describe, how City play, how City attack. And I think not even just with Doku and Cherki. I mean, even just looking at some of the players on that pitch, out of those, like you have Cherki, Foden, and Bernardo, all of which can play in midfield and equally on the right hand side, or equally sort of on either side of the wings. The fluidity is very much there, front and centre, when it comes to the team sheet and who was picked. But yeah, I mean, Cherki, what a player he is. Do you know what I mean? Wirtz who? Who needs Wirtz when you got Cherki? Do you know what I mean? Like that headed pass is just that. I audibly gasped in the stadium. Like that was De Bruyne against Watford curled header sort of pass-esque. Like it was unbelievable. Haaland as well. Certainty. I think it's that one word you've got with him is just certainty. I think as soon as he sort of broke through on goal, you knew we won a lot. You knew we'd score. But I think, Cherki, I could waffle on about Cherki for a long, long time. It was, again, every sort of bright spark attack, he was involved. He was sort of in the build-up, whether he was getting the assists or just sort of in and around the chances. But yeah, he's just some player, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, I think every single person who watched the Swansea game was calling out for Ryan Cherki to be put in that starting 11, and it felt like it was going to be typical Pep Guardiola, where the whole fan base is clamouring for this one thing, and we're reduced to another cameo appearance. But no, it was sensational, and he comes in, and I think at that point he kind of has to deliver, because I don't think his performance against Spurs was necessarily bad per se, but it
It set the
obviously lacks
agenda.
a little bit. Yeah, exactly. And I think if you go two starts in the Premier League and both of them are underwhelming, then suddenly you're like, oh, is he only doing it against teams in the cup? Yes, he's had one or two bright cameos off the bench, 10 minutes here and there, but is he going to be able to do it? The intensity of the Premier League, blah, 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 blah. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't a masterclass. It wasn't 10 out of 10. I'm still going away from that game with a list of stuff that I'd like to see Ryan Shirky improve on. But the base level is just like the floor. I think with his performances is so high, and he sees the game. You could copy and paste our conversation after the Swansea game, but he sees the game reminiscent of a David Silva, and obviously technical ability and sort of just overall quality is nowhere near that just yet. But in terms of the vision, you can see just some of the passes. Plays the game at his own tempo in the sense that you can be sat around the edge of the box. The defenders can feel like they're bunkered in. Next thing you know, he plays a little bounce pass with either Haaland or Foden or whoever, and then he's opened up a shooting opportunity, or he's created a little bit of space. And to be fair, neither of those were sort of the way that the goals came about. Ironically, that was probably some of his easier actions. Obviously, the header is sublime to put him through, but in terms of like putting ball in space behind defence for big man who likes to score goals, that's kind of his bread and butter. But I just think, especially at home this season, and no, to be fair, we have seen it away. City are leaning in on that sort of direct transition, get the ball in behind. Don't get me wrong, I thought it was absurd, bonkers how much space Bournemouth were continually allowing, because it wasn't even just the two that Haaland scored. There was a Nico O'Reilly one just after, and throughout the game, Bournemouth were just madness in terms of the space. But Shirky sees that, Shirky puts on a performance. Shirky's got me, a grown man, thinking, am I too old to be buying football shirts with players' names on the back and walking around? Because he just makes you enjoy football. He's the sort of player that you go, yeah, you pay to watch him, because he is that. He dazzles, he dances, he shines. He's just amazing.
Yeah, a true sort of mercurial. I think I likened him after that Swansea review to David Silva, to King Clancy, with just the way the ball just glides when he's got it. It sticks to his feet like glue, and he just glides. He weaves in between defenders. He's just exceptional. I think that you're right. He can create a chance kind of out of nothing. There was a couple where he did have a couple, a nice little layoff with Haaland to have a shooting chance, and maybe he did deserve a goal today. But 2 assists is still brilliant. And for both of them, the header is, like I say, it's just mental. Like, are you mad? What are you actually doing, making that pass, and like it being, not like putting too much on it or not putting enough on it, and it's sort of being caught by a defender. It is a perfectly weighted ball being behind to Haaland with your head. It's like, that's just crazy in my eyes. And I think as well, then the second one, yeah, I know Bournemouth, the defending wasn't amazing, but it was so nice just to see a ball floated over the top through the midfield, very, like we've seen so many times before with Haaland in the team. But it was just, I don't know, something felt different about it today. And I think one thing in really, like, I can't remember when it might have not even been me who said it, but one of the early sort of Club World Cup games was Turkey presses quite a lot. He's a very big presser. And I think someone on the pod said that Pep is going to love that fact. And I think today I could have been sort of the 70th, might have been the 70th odd minute, or maybe a bit before that. But Haaland was sort of visibly like knackered. I think the goal kick, and it had been passed about a couple of times. So Cherky sort of took it upon himself and go, okay, I'll lead the press this time then. And he didn't, and he did that all throughout the game. And it's not just about the sort of the nice bits that you see with him, the passes, the assists, all that lot, the skill. It's the hard work that he puts in. And considering that when we signed him, it was, oh, well, he might be 100 million cheaper than Wirtz, but he's got an attitude problem. Well, I would beg to differ, because I think nothing we've seen so far is anything of an attitude problem. It looks like, the way that Bernardo is such a workhorse for City, and the way that he just does not stop running. It wouldn't surprise me if, I suppose weight loss Cherky and give him a bit longer under Pep, he turns into something similar, where he's a bit of a workhorse when he's deployed in midfield. He can do that role of just sort of sprint about everywhere and put everyone under pressure, because he does seem to just naturally be a very good, presser from the front line. And I think it's no sign of a bad attitude, and I think it's just sort of all round his performance today was very, very good, and I'm excited to see more of him because hopefully this should be sort of the platform. You should go from this now and playing more Premier League games. I mean, I don't expect him starting against Liverpool. He probably will play some involvement against Dortmund, but I think that I'm excited to see more of him in the Premier League this season and not just in the cup games.
You say he's not going to start against Liverpool. What is the alternative? I could possibly see Bernardo Silva going back to that right-hand side and Tijani Reinders coming in for a little bit more of a box-to-box. But other than that, you're not playing Bob. You're certainly not playing Savinho. And we've seen him deliver. I do get what you're saying in terms of
it's not a like I don't want him to. It's I fear
sure,
Pep is going to be conservative.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not at Anfield, so I think there's at least a bigger chance of Cherki playing to some part. But I don't know. I feel like Pep might be, look, it's a big game. Let's start the kind of what he did last season and lean on old reliable and have Bernardo on the right, and then maybe sub Cherki on if it's going well at that point. Give him 30, 35 minutes, something like that. But I'd love to see him start because I really think we can take the game to Liverpool. Yeah. But I just fear Pep may be a little conservative.
No, I share those fears. Heading into the game, I was exactly the same. But I think
there is a lack of better option. Let's be fair.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's working, isn't it? I know there was a few times where Pep was really animated at Cherki, and I'm not buying into the idea that he's not a Pep player. I think that's absolute bollocks. But I do think there are some times where Cherki can get a little bit better and against better quality opposition, stronger opposition. Maybe that does play into it. But I think if he has a similar performance against Dortmund or whatever. I think the evidence, the proof was in the pudding. Sweet. We will leave it there for part one. Join us after this quick break. Welcome back to the City Ramble 3-word review time. Let's go. Matt Kerr, Nunes is Cafu. Facts. Sydney says, really good overall. Ben says, Savinho must go. Probably pick up Savinho chat later in the week because it is certainly, people scratching their heads and whatnot. It's probably worth a segment of it of its own. Vihan says Cherki must play. Shay says Cherki is silk. Dajid says defense was solid. Totally agree. Sumarva says Nico brackets G is engine, and I think that's absolutely fair. Ahmed says Nico for me is the most improved player so far. Not quite 3-word review, but it's an interesting point because what Nico? Because you could have a genuine conversation about both. Husan says Pep new tactics. Banyin says Nico Gonzalez cooking. Map says Cherki Haaland duo. Joe, I think the most striking thing for me from those 3-word reviews off Instagram at City Ramble, if you're not following already, is the fact that there were so many different names being mentioned. I think you could make an argument that all of these players were above an 8 out of 10. Obviously Donnarumma, not quite, because that was a bit of a mistake, even if he did have a bit of a pull on his arm. Nico O'Reilly, I'm going to put Diaz in there as well. I think he's been under the radar. I thought he was solid. Why not Gvardiol? There was a great tackling late in the second half when City were 3-1 up, and it was at that point, like, if Bournemouth get a goal back here, then it could be shaky. I think you could make a case that Nunes is even higher than an 8 because that, for me, was one of his best games in the City shirt. Nico Gonzalez, absolutely. Bernardo Silva, I wouldn't necessarily. I think he was firmly in sort of 7 category, maybe 6.5. I think you could definitely say Phil Foden was, not necessarily for the classic Phil Foden performance that we know and love, but in terms of that off-the-ball work, his commitment, his obviously to get an assist as well, so can't really begrudge him for that. That's the midfield, isn't it? Obviously, Haaland, 2 goals, yep. Obviously, Obviously, Cherki, yep. And I think you could maybe even say Doku. Obviously, he didn't pop up with a goal contribution, but I thought, especially that first half, he was excellent. Maybe faded. Maybe not quite 8, maybe a 7.5. The point I'm getting at, Joe, is that was possibly the most complete team performance that City have had all of this season so far.
Yeah, totally agree. Like I said earlier, the first half I was really impressed with the way City set up and the way that everybody played a part in that. I would also say as well, Foden, not only I would give him sort of high ratings for his actual involvement in sort of the game itself, but just the fact that now touch wood, he's become a bit of a Mr. Consistent. Like, you can kind of rely on him to drop a 6.5, 7 out of 10, and it's
even last week against Villa when everyone else was bobbins, I thought he was quite good.
Exactly. And I think it was nice. It was also nice as well to see that Foden was rewarded for his consistency in not going down when he's fouled, and he always seems to just try and stay on his feet as much. He truly enjoys just playing football and not diving out for challenges, because to get poke that ball through to O'Reilly, he really did have to wriggle his way through a couple of challenges. So fair play to Phil for that. But yeah, totally agree. I think the entire team could be given sort of plaudits, maybe less the substitutes perhaps, but that's a chat for another day. But I think the starting 11, I think was just great all round, and I think that I think in the 3-word reviews, you could have had plenty more players mentioned, and it would have made total sense to have them included as well. Obviously, the standouts are going to be Shirky and Haaland for their involvement in the goals, but you're right, the off-ball work by everybody involved in what you could say is a bit of a switch up in tactics for City in comparison to sort of the direct style of football we've been playing lately. I think that it was just brilliant all round. Everyone worked hard. Everyone had that desire. I especially loved Diaz. It might have been where there was a tackle somewhere near late in the game, and he just absolutely booted the ball, and it's probably left a bit on a Bournemouth defender or Bournemouth attacker, and he just went straight through them. And it was sort of these are up for it. And even Donnarumma, even after the goal, the guy did make a pretty, not crucial save, but
sharpish, wasn't it?
Yeah,
wasn't it? Yeah.
And other than that, I thought again he was pretty comfortable. Anyone who it's like Gvardiol and Diaz, there was nothing really majorly sort of to shout about. But I'd rather that than have them moaning about a bozo mistake or something. I'd quite happily have not a lot to say about them if it means we're getting consistent 7 and 8 performances out of them. So I think all round very impressed with City, very impressed with the tactical setup, the way that we sort of nullified their attack, and the way that you could say pretty much everybody on that pitch was in the 7s or above, I'd say.
Most goals after 10 matches in the Premier League. Are you ready? At 5th place, it's Erling Haaland with 11 in the 24-25 season. In joint 5th place, in fact, it's Erling Haaland with the 23-24 season with 11 goals. In 3rd place, it's Les Ferdinand with 13 in the 1995 season. In 2nd place, it's Erling Haaland with 13 goals this season. He's gone to 13 goals after 10 matches. And in 1st place, it's Erling Haaland, would you believe that? 22-23 for 15 goals after 10 matches. So actually, Joe, he's getting worse, which is, maybe some serious conversations need to be had, because in his first season, he got 15 goals after 10 matches. This season, he's got 13 goals after 10 matches. So are we having conversations about how Erling Haaland's regressing? Big open brackets sarcasm if anybody's screaming at their phone or the YouTube stream or whatever. No, I mean we can laugh and joke and say his numbers are marginally worse than they were after 10 games. It's obviously don't make a difference, but I'd say his all-round performance is light years ahead of what it was when he first arrived at City anyway. So
and he's still an absolute freak of nature. I think 13 goals is still abnormal. He's still clearly very, as his celebration suggested.
He's incredibly good at making content as well.
Oh
so
yeah, massive shout. He has my biggest respect for that, by the way, because I could rant about footballers and approaching social media.
Yeah.
We saw it with Maddison, day in the lives and all that. Haaland going out on the streets of Manchester dressed as the Joker. That is what I want to see from my striker. I don't want to see anything else about day in the lives. That's what I want to see.
Incredible. Although I do have a bone to pick. I haven't been able to geolocate it just yet, but I'm pretty sure it was Cheshire, not Manchester.
Wow.
So maybe that's one room for improvement. I'm pretty sure he was in the leafy suburbs of Cheshire. But I mean, jokes aside, that YouTube video was hilarious. He's coming for our job. Not only is he terrorizing defenders and turning, he's an AI goal scorer at this point. He's also got a little bit of taking the mick out of himself with his robot celebration. He's also coming for us content creators as well. So goodness me, he quite literally can do it all. He's taking the defenders' jobs as well, Joe. Yeah. He's these strikers coming into our country and taking all of our jobs. It can't go on. It can't go on.
It can. No, I mean, I think I put it in the group chat. I said, Haaland winning the ball from a corner or from a set piece again, being the first one to meet the ball and head it away again, is you're just so right. Like there's this season we've really and sort of maybe the. I mean, not the back end of last season, but sort of this season anyway, especially, we've seen a massive improvement in just his overall play. And that's not just what he is with the ball at his feet. There was a chance where I think he's got two Bournemouth defenders on him. It must be kind of relatively late in the game. And he manages to dribble it past him and go on a little run before laying it off to Cherky or to somebody else. And it's not just sort of what can he do with the ball at his feet, but it's just the rest of his... I think he's grown as a leader, which is a big...
Yeah.
I think he's always has been a natural sort of born winner and whatnot, but I think he's really grown into that role this season, alongside Donnarumma as well. I think they both complement each other very well. But his defensive actions as well, and it's not just sort of... He doesn't just win the first header. He will then sit in the back line for another 30, 45 seconds until the ball is adequate distance enough away, and he can... he's got confidence that the team can get back into shape. It's all them sort of elements that are just falling into the right place for Haaland at the minute. And I think we could praise him for hours on end because there's just so much to talk about in his game lately that is just exceptional. Obviously, he's got the goal scoring records, and to be fair, I'm quite surprised there's even anyone else other than Haaland in that list. I was expecting all of them to be Haaland, but that's obviously exceptional. We can chat about that for however long, but everything else in his game at the minute is just on the up, and I think that Pep said we cannot replace Aguero, and I still think we can't replace him as a legend status, but sort of the influence that he had and the goal scoring ability that we sort of had. This may be blasphemy almost, but sort of it's well and truly been replaced. I mean, the guy's scoring an abnormal amount of goals, and he's playing. He's sort of now adapting to that. Be involved in the build-up type of football that Aguero was quite good at, and that was something you had with him. Haaland is now a freak of nature with his goal scoring ability, the fact that he's a mammoth at the back as well, and he's pretty decent with his feet now. He can take it past players and dribble. He can link up, make 1-2s. He's not just sort of, right, you sit in the box and we'll get the wingers to cross it to you. He's much more involved now, and we've seen that growth in his game over the last couple, over the last, the earlier part of this season, and hopefully it'll continue. We'll see him grow and be an even more robot and freak of nature of a player that he already is.
Yeah, I think the annoying part of this game, because there's so much to speak about, is there's another big match on the horizon this week as well. So we will of course pick it up tomorrow. Thankfully, it's the Wednesday game, which gives us a little bit of leeway because I'm sure there's plenty to sort of mull over. Joe, any parting thoughts before we get out of here? Obviously, big win, like we said. City up to second in the provisional table. Liverpool in third. I mean, I know they got about 6 last-minute winners to start the season, but that seems like we're being scammed a little bit there. Bournemouth in fourth. Tottenham, another bad result for them. Tottenham above Chelsea. This league is just weird, and obviously Arsenal are kind of making it, I'm not going to say a procession or wrapping it up early doors, blah blah blah, but they're looking like the most serious team out of the lot so far after 10 matches. But apart from that, I mean, just a very bizarre league. Sunderland can finish the weekend in second if they beat Everton on the Monday night game, but otherwise, just like I don't even want to look at the table because I feel like at this point there's probably no point.
Yeah, I agree. I've always sort of said what matters is where we are come kind of Christmas and what the points tally and the table's looking like then. I think I'll say it time and time again, if we're there 3 points, maximum 6 points away off Arsenal, or maybe Sunderland, who were top of the league at that point, God knows, in the Premier League. But then I'm confident the City can get the job done. I suppose just a couple parting thoughts. I thought Nico O'Reilly took his goal very, very well. He should have had two.
Yeah.
But that goal, the little feint that he did, he takes his time, he's composed.
Again, I couldn't believe how much space he had in time. I was really disappointed with the way Brentford defended, but I agree totally that the finish was incredible.
And also, just to toot my own horn, and yours as well, can we just have a little update on the prediction league, please, Amos?
Well, yes. The only reason I haven't is because I'm not fully filled in the points, but I can confirm...
At least give us the good news about our scores.
There were 3 a record there was a joint record for a single game week. Correct scores. Congratulations to Luke Barsley, Joe Olivier, and Amos Murphy, who all said 3-1. And it got to the point where I can't remember who had a chance late on when they didn't put it in the back of the net. I went, oh, and then I went, because we're back in it. Adam and Matt Kerr both went for 2-1, so obviously they get a point, but the top two cancelled each other out. Joe and Luke, you're up to Joe Olivier, yourself, you're up to 9 points, so you're just 1 point behind the leader now, Adam, who's on 10. I go from 4 points to 7, so I've made a significant leap up the table. Yeah, that's a great end to a great weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, before we started recording, I was convinced that I'd put 2-1 down and did once again.
Wait, maybe you did. Maybe we
No. I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to investigate anything like that. I'll do some cash under the desk dealings if we need to. But yeah, I was convinced I'd put 2-1. So when it finished 2-1, I thought, oh well, you know what I mean. At least City had won, and then to be told beforehand, oh, you know, you got it right. Oh, buzzing! What an even better way to end the weekend. So yeah, absolutely buzzing to be second place. But you know, I'm coming for that top spot.
Yeah, you are joint second with about 4 people.
Well, yeah, it's very true. It's very close in the prediction league, but
that's not that's not that relevant. Second place is second place. Cool. I think we'll call it a day, Joe. That was fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure as always.
Wherever you are consuming this wonderful form of entertainment, make sure to leave a rating and a review on YouTube, on your Spotify or Apple Podcasts or other podcast platform. That'll do. We'll be back tomorrow. Massive week. Make sure you stick around. Until next time, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you later.